Hello, and welcome to today's conversation of Birding Conversations, where we take the time and we speak to the people we want to speak about and hear all about moms' experience of their birth, their lifestyle, what could happen after birth and during pregnancy. And we also want to touch on subjects that just people do not want to talk about. And it's still very important to the listeners to listen to them. So, for today's episode, it's my honor to welcome Amanda Weisz.
Esther, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. It's really a pleasure having you here.
Thank
We
you.
got to know each other pretty recently, and there is so much we catched up in that short time. Amanda is a mom, and Amanda is in school for social work.
Yep.
And Amanda is currently moving and in the middle of moving to be here for an episode. That's not easy. I truly, truly appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So, Amanda, it's basically your stage. And when we met and we spoke, I know that unfortunately we didn't know each other 7 years ago when you had an experience of postpartum depression.
Yeah.
And I wish we would know each other then. But that makes me even more curious to hear your story and for listeners to hear your story. And if you want to tell me about yourself, about how the birth of your child came, what happened, so
I'd be
just
glad
let's
to.
talk.
Okay, so I experienced what I didn't know was postpartum at the time, 7 years ago, after the birth of my third child. Um, I had had two previous children. They were much older. So this was my first baby after 13 years, second marriage. So I was blessed to have another one. And it was quite a different experience than the other two. I was in my 20s, first of all. So everything's a little bit easier when you're in your 20s. It wasn't, my pregnancies were always pretty difficult, but my labors were pretty easy, bounced back in 2 days. And I was pretty,
2 days.
yeah, 2 days.
Well,
I had natural delivery, pretty good to go. This one was an emergency C-section after almost 30 hours of labor. And unfortunately, it ended with an emergency C-section. And I will tell you, it knocked me to a different universe.
so the birth was traumatic.
The birth was very traumatic.
Yeah.
The birth was hugely, hugely traumatic. I could tell you honestly that I, unfortunately, do not think back with fond memories on that. If you ask, still, and we're talking 7 years later, it was, I think I still have like a physical sort of shaking reaction when I think about it. It was a very, very traumatic.
We need to talk about that.
It was a very traumatic experience from start to finish.
And pregnancy was just as good as with the others.
So pregnancies for me are always difficult. I do go into preterm labor, but thank God I usually have the first two pretty easy, easy labors, 4 hours, and they were both, out. And like I said, they were both natural deliveries. So this one, I was already 13 years older. I was in my late 30s. I was about 38. The whole experience, 30 hours was nothing I had ever even dreamed that I would be going, through. And then to have an emergency C-section was from a mom who had already been through two, and I'm thinking, oh, I've got this. And to have an emergency C-section is already, we all have our set of sort of what we expectations that we're gonna, and like then it was the recovery was just the most complete and utter, I don't even want to use the word, but like really worst experience I've ever had.
So what happened? You gave birth.
I gave birth. I felt like I had gotten hit by a Mack truck. So first of all, you have the physical recovery, which you're not used to. I was in no way used to that because, like I said, I had two previous natural deliveries. I was up 2 days later, getting on with my life. Here, I was completely like knocked to the ground physically. Emotionally, I was just done. Even before I had even started, I was done. Here you go through the pregnancy, which is a hard pregnancy. Then you have this 30-hour labor. And then you have this baby now that you have to take care of. And you're dealing with so much of your own expectations that were letdowns for this experience. And then B, I can't explain to you when it happened or how it happened, but something chemical definitely shifted, for sure.
Yeah. As a result of the hormonal shift.
I did not know what it was at the time, but I can tell you that less than 24 hours after giving birth, I was having this major anxiety panic attack in the hospital, to the point that I had literally got up, and it was 4 a.m. and I was walking the halls of the hospital. My niece was with me, and she was very young, and I feel bad. I think I really traumatized her. I was walking the halls, and the nurses were like, "What are you doing? You just had a C-section. Like, go back to bed." And I felt like the walls of the hospital were legit closing in on me. I could not stay in the hospital. I needed out. There was a physical reaction.
Yeah, I get that. You're not the first one that shares that.
I needed
that. It feels very physical.
It's physical.
It's not something like, okay, just tell you mind. It's like that urge.
It's physically, right. It's a physical. I did not know what I was going through. I'm going to be very honest. So let me preface by saying, I wish I would have known 7 years ago. I wish there would have been a sparks, because
you didn't know.
I didn't know. I really, because I think that the word postpartum is a word that it's used sort of commonly. You're a new mom. Oh, you're postpartum. People don't.
Postpartum is after birth, but that doesn't mean that it's smooth.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You don't know the implications of just using the word postpartum. So like, I know when I got home a few days later, I was not myself.
And what happened that night when you got up at 4 a.m.?
So I was.
How did that trip end?
It ended with the nurses saying to me, like, I wanted to I remember wanting to push the elevator button and get on and just call my husband and say, "Get me out of here." But I had a baby upstairs, and there was this grapple. I was in tears. I was in complete tears of this physical need of needing to leave the hospital. And this, like, my baby's upstairs, like, what am I doing? What am I going to do?
That conflict.
Right. And so I remember going back upstairs, and I just, like, got into bed and I cried. And my niece was like, what are we going to do? Like, what are we, like, I could not. I said, I have to go home. I have to get out of here. I need to go. That resulted in my blood pressure being a little bit higher.
Yeah.
And I remember when the doctor came the next day, and, they say every hospital has its prerequisites for you being able to go home. For where I was, you couldn't have high blood pressure. You had to, be able to, and my pressure was high. And I remember hearing the doctor say, "Well, our pressure's high. We don't know if we can send her home." And right away, like, I burst out into this, like, crying, like, I cannot stay here. I cannot stay here. I cannot stay here. I'm not staying here. I don't care. Someone needs to get me out of here.
You felt like your mind is racing?
Racing, and the level of anxiety, like, your heart is going to jump out of your chest, and the walls are closing in. I need out of here.
And you have no control over it.
No control.
Yeah.
Now, mind you, I was always a little more of an anxious person by nature, but it was very manageable, and I was able to always, this was something
out of your comfort.
I had to get out of my comfort zone. I didn't even, my boys tell me now, my older boys, I did not remember this, but when I had gotten home, it was within the first few days, and I'm a divorced mom. So, my son remembers me telling him, both my kids, actually, they remind me of this. If I die, don't worry, you can live with Abba. He loves you. And my kids were so traumatized. They said, "You were so out of your mind, Mom. Like, I was just a mess."
You were just saying things you wouldn't say normally.
I was saying things I wouldn't say. I was crying. And I remember people, and I couldn't be alone.
You were struggling.
I was beyond struggling. I couldn't be alone. I remember my mother came that night. She slept on the couch. She went home the next morning, and I literally had to have friends, like, every 2 hours and shifts. Even folding laundry. I couldn't do it myself. I needed to always have the silence. Was just like, I didn't know which end was up.
It was too scary.
And
you had no clue.
No clue. People kept saying to me, "Oh, you're an older mom. This happens to older mothers. You're in your late 30s. You're postpartum, but not with the implications of what postpartum could
You
be.
probably had postpartum anxiety.
So if thank God for an aunt of mine who happens to be a therapist, I was talking to her on the phone. I was like crying, and it was already a couple of weeks after, and I happened to have been on Xanax. I did go on Xanax because I was,
which is an anti-anxiety.
I could not cope.
And who
function.
gave this to you?
One of my primary care doctor.
A primary care. Okay. Which I'm not in love with that part.
No,
but
so
it worked.
I'll tell you honestly that my primary care doctor, she's my sister-in-law, and I love her dearly. But when I would call her and tell her, like, you're a new mother, you're good, you don't need to take anything. And why do I say that? Because I think people really don't understand the struggle that is literally going on in one's mind when they are going through it. It is so physical. It is like you literally want to like reach into your head and like turn off a switch or yank something out so that you stop like feeling the things that you're feeling. I don't know that I can do justice. I hope I can to explain what it is. But I can tell you that 7 years later, I'm still not myself. 7 years later, I still suffer from anxiety that is like off the charts.
We're gonna take care of you. That's now you know Sparks is here.
It's just interesting to me how
I can see on your facial expression that when you talk about it, it still feels very raw and fresh.
It's so raw and fresh.
As if it would just happen. And here, when I see you in a different setting, not talking about this, you're really such a lively person and full of life and so much to give. And you still do. It's not contradicting. But when we speak about this particular, I can see on your face, on your emotions,
it was a trauma.
that it's a trauma. I see it still.
Yeah.
It's not over.
It's not over.
And it needs closure.
It does. And I think it's important for women, at least for me and my journey. Like I said, I'm 7 years out and it's still something I just learned about Sparks and the real magnitude of postpartum. But I think one thing I want women to really know is it's not a failure onto us. I know for me as a mother, this was my third go around. I had 2 teenagers at this time and I'm going, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with me? I had 2 kids, 2 teenagers. I was divorced for many years. I managed to lead a very successful life. I had I cannot handle this like time of my, and I'm not a person who sits down. I am up, I am going, I am doing. Yeah. You cannot get me down. That is not me. But I don't think people really realize. And today my husband still like, he'll be like, you're anxious? Like, what does that even mean? He doesn't even get.
And the sad part is how much stigma and shame comes in the way and prevents moms from reaching out 100%, to help.
100%. I think it's the stigma. I think there's also getting the help, accessing the help, meaning where is the help? Let's get it out there. The awareness has to be there, where I think also the word postpartum, like you said, people use the word postpartum after a woman has a baby. Yes, she's a postpartum mommy.
Right.
But I think we have to do more awareness and more sort of checking. What is she going through? Is she okay?
Not every postpartum is that smooth.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I've been talking about it on other episodes, so we're not going to talk about it again. But even within postpartum, where it's not that smooth, there are different kinds. Right. We have the depression, we have the anxiety, we have the PTSD, which is the post-traumatic stress disorder, we have the OCD, and we have the bipolar and the psychosis. So just talking about what you're saying about awareness and about how much it's needed. So,
and it's not shameful. We can't be ashamed to say like we're struggling and we need help.
Right. It shows on strength, not the opposite. And so many, and also to go to the right help, the ones that know. If you know, I mean, the world is so up with it, with this lovely, her picture, she looks like such a sweetheart, this nurse in Massachusetts that was a labor and delivery nurse and was on medication, but something there was going wrong. She wasn't on the right
Medication or the right dose. Or...
So whom are you getting medication from? And she was in therapy.
Right.
And for the 20-minute errands that her husband took to go get her the new medication, she killed her 3 children. And when all neighbors and everyone around said that she was the example of being a mom, she was breeding her children, she loved her children, she dressed them, and that was the field. She was in labor and delivery. So that's what she dealt with all the time. So of course we cannot say it's her fault. But what this is teaching me, and I hope many others, don't sit in silence. So it is very real, like you say, and you did what you had to for that moment, and thank God that worked. But I would like to hear more from you, Amanda, about from that point of being home and having everyone around you and feeling so not yourself. How did you reach the point of healing? What happened?
I don't think I'm totally healed. I'm going to be very honest. I don't think I'm not myself still, 7 years later. I don't think I'm totally myself. The anxiety is still there.
To the extent that you had it
not
then?
To that extent, but it is debilitating. I could tell you, like, there were times I used to commute for work and I would be driving through the Holland Tunnel and, there would be like traffic or a little traffic jam. And I would literally physically start to sweat and cry and like open the door. Like I need out. I need to get out of here.
That same feeling.
And I need out. Like, but there's 1,000 cars. How am I getting out of here? But like, and then turning on the air conditioner, blowing the air, trying to listen to music, something to like put a video on to just my mind, just like to you need to like, just what I need to get my mind.
I'm sorry to hear that. What this is telling me, again, how much reaching out for help and at early intervention and in the right time and really completely heal is so important.
100%.
Now, there are, we're going to talk about this privately, but there are blood tests to take to rule out other things. There isn't just like a one size fit all.
Right.
It's like a whole gestalt to look at and see how we can really help you to completely get out of it. But this is a very strong and painful message to other moms that, don't take the chance of just sitting around and waiting. It's going to completely heal by itself.
Yeah.
Maybe it will, maybe it won't.
Maybe it will, and it's something that affects not just the mom, it affects the whole family. I can tell you my children were affected. My baby was affected because I felt like...
Did you bond with your baby?
So it's interesting. My other 2 I bonded with right away. Like this one, I felt like I couldn't do anything right. If I held him, he cried. I was, and then that made me more anxious. And then my husband would pick him up and he would be fine. Or my kids would go get him and he would be, and I just couldn't. I felt like I wasn't doing anything correctly. Nursing was difficult. And then your mind just, so you have the anxiety now, like, what am I doing wrong? You have your set of expectations. You were a repeat mom. This is not going according to plan. Like, what's wrong with me here? So then you start to spiral because now you're like, you have this chemical thing that's literally just been set off in your brain. Now you have your own set of sort of expectations that have gone completely nothing like you ever, thought they were going to. So you kind of have this perfect storm. And like you said, so let's talk about the help and the awareness. For me, my personal thing, I was very fortunate to have some really amazing friends who didn't leave me alone, who said to me at some point, okay, you're struggling. You are really struggling. You are not yourself. You need to like do something. You need to, and I remember for me, the thought of like going on meds was like, meds, don't do that. Like come on, me, I was divorced 10 years. I worked 2 jobs, raised 2 kids, like school, like you want me to go on meds? Like, but I'm not myself.
Right.
And I am struggling. So I did take the Xanax. I'll be honest, it wasn't a great feeling. I think for me, first of all, you want a quick fix because you want to stop this switch in your brain that you don't know what happened and how it happened. So you're like anything to stop that switch. And unfortunately for me, there was just no awareness. There was like I couldn't.
That's what we're getting back to. But thank God the support of your friends you had
But even
is there something you did with change of your diet,
yeah, so
with your
a lot,
lifestyle?
yeah. So it definitely more self-care. I had to learn. I'm a type A personality. There's nothing I don't do. I don't ask for help. I had to really learn to say I can't do this.
Which is a big message to moms, because I'm sure that many of moms that are sitting and listening to this are saying, I can so much identify with that. I'm just perfect mom. I know how to do everything. And how come I can't? And if I can, there is something wrong with me. So understanding the self-care and understanding that no one is perfect. And so are moms. We are not supposed to be perfect.
Right. We're not supposed to be. And
And
I can,
that is a very, very strong message. Don't expect to be perfect. Don't demand from yourself to be perfect.
Take it as it comes. Don't have any, I don't want to say don't have any expectations, but learn that you're just human and you're going through something that is.
Treat yourself with grace and with kindness.
And allow yourself the ability to say, I'm just not up to it. I can't. I don't know if at that time I think I was going through
this. Do you see now that you have self-love?
Then I was going through this maze of you know, you go into these like haunted houses and you just everywhere you walk is like a window of a mirror and you just can't. That's what I felt like then. You just don't know which end is up. I think self-love was like, I don't even know if I knew at that point like what like to have it. Like I was just literally trying to get through the days, the moments.
And is it something you learned with the years?
So it's definitely something I've learned. It's definitely something, like I said, I really have amazing friends. It's definitely something I'm still learning. I think it's a work in progress. I think we all have to learn it. I think it's that.
Especially moms.
Yeah, especially moms. Yeah. We give our look, we're moms, we give. That's how we're bred. We're born to give to others and take care of our kids, put our kids' needs first, you know, before ourselves. And I think maybe in a perfect world, that's great. But I think we come to a point in life where after we've been through something like this, where we can't, like we have to.
Yeah, self-love is major because it's, you know, it seems like, okay, I'm going to love myself. Yeah. Am I selfish? Of course you're not. But also what some moms don't realize is that when you have the self-love, you really can love others more, including your children. And everything starts with self. Yeah. It all starts with self. So we cannot ignore that part in us.
I think that's the key thing. And actually someone said that to me about 4 years ago. And when I was still, my baby was about, you know, he was 4 and I was, again, 7 years later, I'm still not the same. My anxiety is still,
yeah. So we're gonna talk about it, but it's a strong message out there to the world that it could also not just go away on its own. Like many we dream, including me, but that's not always the case. And were there other things going on at the same time that you feel that they were also contributing to the situation?
Obviously, my third baby, this baby was born out of a second marriage. So you obviously have the stresses of a newer marriage. I took on a stepdaughter who, unfortunately, 3 years ago, was diagnosed with cancer. She was, you know,
that's for itself is
aside from all the kids, all of my kids, my husband's daughter, from the beginning, they all had their issues, meaning their learning issues, their behavior issues. So it wasn't a, okay, just get married, bring this baby into the world. And that's where it started. It was a full plate. Even before that, every kid had their challenge. Every kid had their things that they needed.
You had your plate full.
I had my plate full. So to bring this on, and I was navigating it well. And then this comes and it literally drops you to a place that you don't know where to go.
Because this hormonal change came along with it. 100%. So which means you were able to navigate so much in your life before, and you're the same person. But with the hormonal change and the trauma to your body, and to your
mind, to your psyche,
and to your mind, and everything else along. So you, the same Amanda, did not have any more the strength you had before, because it's nothing that changed with the kids, just added on.
Right.
But unfortunately, your daughter got cancer, which is a big trauma for itself. But when she got cancer, you're already not in that good place. So
Everything
can
takes
just
so much more. Every life event I find, and again, this is just my own personal take and story for me, takes so much more out of me. As before, I used to be able to bounce back and recover. Okay, I had 2 hours sleep and I can recover and I'm good. Now, no, I can't. I don't recover from it.
yeah, you need more to be here for yourself, which is also a learning experience for you to see that us as moms, we're not always the same, and and age makes a difference, and experiences in life makes a difference, and we have to just navigate those as they come. Because I hear a lot of times from moms saying, well, I used to be able to do this,
Yeah.
and I used to. So it's not about what we were used to. It's about what is it that's going on right now. And living in the now and living in the moment is something crucial
So
for
I think
well-being.
that for me was my biggest. I think you just hit it with that. For me is like the hardest thing for me, and something I'm still learning is living in the now. Like each day is just a day. Each event is an event. I'm going to take it
as it comes.
As it comes. Even going to bed at night. Like some nights I sleep great and some nights I cannot. I just can't. And Muslim say, like, what's wrong? Why? I can't. It's not like, okay, just turn over and go back to sleep in your mind. No, it is like,
it's a struggle.
I can't explain it. And I cry sometimes because I'm like, it's such a personal struggle. And it's like, you can't understand unless you literally have had that flick, that switch flicked. You can't understand it. It's so beyond you. And even now, 7 years later, I still struggle with my health issues, finding the right hormonal balance. I am off. And I say it to, I walk into doctors, I'm like, I'm off. There's still something not right with me. We still haven't figured out this
We're
piece.
going to help you. We're going to help you to get back to yourself. And to the audience, I think there are some major, lessons to be taken from here about the whole discussion we had. First, the importance of knowing that a place like Sparks exists.
I'm so grateful
to
that
reach out for help, to reach out to the right help.
And don't be ashamed if you feel that something might be wrong, even if it's nothing, even if you feel like it may not be the biggest thing. Make a phone call. Better to say it's nothing than...
Absolutely. It can never hurt. It's about living in the now. It's about the self-love. I think there are a lot of things we covered, and I'm going to give you, Amanda, the last word. What's the message that you would want to say other than what we already told the audience? Something new that we want to give them, the understanding, the hope.
There is a light at the end of the tunnel. I could say that even though I'm not 100% myself, I feel hugely better. Take care of yourself. Understand that this is something that affects your whole family. Find your why, so to speak, and just love yourself and know that, I don't know, there's so many messages I want to give, but just don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't be hard.
Everything will be okay.
Everything will be good. Just take it every minute, take it every
day.
Will
be okay.
Allow yourself that time to, whatever word you want to put on it, grieve, not be yourself, whatever you need to do, allow yourself those moments.
Yeah. And I would just add on that it's never too late to reach out for help.
No.
So moms, remember that. It's never too late.
Look, I'm 7 years
say,
out and I'm grateful.
It happened then. Never too late.
I'm 7 years out and I'm grateful for any help now that I could even just get back to a fragment of what I was before my baby.
That's very strong and brave of you to come out and speak here and to really say the truth the way it is. I am not back to myself, but I want to, and I do everything I would do, and I am doing anything in order to get back to that place. And you will, and I'm sure that your message is going to be inspiring, and it's going to be some good medicine and hope to many other moms.
I hope so.
So thank you so much, Amanda, for being here today.
Thank you.